Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Count down to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll-free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you, Barney White. Good morning, folks. Welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. As it has been for the past 28 years, every Saturday morning, we come to you from the center of the automotive universe, as we like to call it. And we do call it that, is the center of the automotive universe. And there are some other automotive areas and automotive locations. When I think of Detroit, Detroit is the hub and the mecca of automobile manufacturing, as we all know, and a lot of good comes out of Detroit, and they're on a rebuilding, and I'm kind of proud of that. There are products from America that seem to be resurging, and that's a good thing. Well, here's the drill. Here's what we'll do this morning. I'll take your calls. Hannah will at 888 Car Clinic. That's 888-227-2546, and she will put you in a queue, and I'll put you on the air. So get in now, please, because we don't want to rush to the end of the program and before you get in. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part this morning by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You can trust the friendly, knowledgeable parts professionals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done, folks. And professional technicians like mine here at Bobby Likis Car Clinic really have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. You can go and see for yourself. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Your calls at 888 Car Clinic when I come back. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you're gonna love us. In the service bay this week, an 08 F-150 with a check engine light flashing, which typically indicates a misfire. The engine was showing the symptoms as well because it was shaking and the truck was hardly running. A complete diagnostics proved the problem to be one failed ignition coil and a marginal coil. At 12 years old and 123,000 miles, we felt it made sense to replace all the coils and spark plugs. Our solution? Replacement coil packs and spark plugs from Motorcraft. These trucks perform best when they're running on all 8 cylinders, and even more so when Motorcraft parts are installed. We carefully installed the coil packs and spark plugs, cleared the misfire codes, and road tested the vehicle. The customer's F-150 ran great. The performance and economy restored. Motorcraft parts are specifically designed for all your Ford and Lincoln repairs. Motorcraft, right part, priced right. You can learn more about Motorcraft coil packs and spark plugs and other high-quality vehicle-specific parts at motorcraft.com. This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Folks, this week an 04 Chevy Avalanche with 196,000 miles came in the shop with a noisy front wheel and ABS light on. Our service team determined the truck had a bad front wheel bearing. Not sure about the ABS issue. We called our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional who recommended a Precision brand hub assembly. The Precision hub came with new bearings, new seals, new wheel studs, and an ABS sensor built in. Perhaps the new hub with its built-in ABS sensor might also fix the ABS. We called the owner to explain the process and give a cost estimate. Replace the hub, clear all codes, and retest the vehicle. What a relief after repair as both the noise and ABS issue were repaired. Given the cost of repair, whenever we can fix 2 problems with 1 part, makes our customers really happy and our team heroes. That's why we make O'Reilly Auto Parts our first call. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Rosie Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow. Now you're here, your aroma helps me wake, and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started, folks. Welcome again to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I hope you had a great week. Ours has been one of the most demanding, busy, which is all good. It's all great if you're, in business and you want to stay busy. But I can tell you this week, in addition to the normal ebb and flow, mostly the flow of automobiles, we had like at 4:30 in the afternoon, we had like 5 cars that were towed into the shop. I mean, occasionally, we'll get 1 or 2 a day, but 5 cars in less than an hour were towed into the shop. The bad news is those owners are facing multiple charges and multiple expenses because they waited until the car brought them into the shop. So just as a reminder, and you say, well, Bobby, you're in the business. Yes, I am in the business, but let me just share this with you folks. I'd much rather work on an automobile that you drive into the shop because it's on its all fours and it's running. And even though there are problems there, of course, you still need to be proactive. So for those 5 cars, one was a battery. And a lady had her vehicle in the shop, and this was yesterday afternoon. It was like almost 5 o'clock before the car was reached our destination. We closed at 5:30, but the team actually had a bad battery. And we had serviced the car earlier that week. It was a Lexus. It was just about 4 years old. So 3 to 5 years, and the moral of the story is the car was fine. We serviced it. We performed all the pre-repair, which is the proactive services on an automobile. And then after that was a couple of days ago, and then she had the car detailed, and the guys that detailed it played the radio and listened to the radio and had the doors open to the light. So they had the ignition on accessory for probably 3 hours. So what happened was the battery was so-called healthy. She didn't have any problems with the battery. She thought, until they detailed the car, and when they finished detailing the car, it wouldn't start. And oops, so she called in a panic because she was on the road today. She had to have her car. So then she called a tow service, and they came out and they ran a little battery check. They jumped her off, and I said, "You just get the car here with the tow service." And they told her, the tow service told her, "You need an alternator and a battery." Well, and so she called me back and said, "Okay, they're coming to get the car, and they said it needs an alternator and a battery. Can you get an alternator and a battery, and put it on the car in an hour on a Friday?" Really? And it was a Lexus. Those are special parts. Although we called and we found one. We called O'Reilly Auto Parts, and as we do, make them our first call. And sure enough, we had an alternator standing by the time the car got here. But here's the moral of this story: you cannot test an alternator with a dead battery, because the dead battery is drawing everything the alternator can put out. And an alternator is not made to recharge a dead battery. An alternator is made to maintain the charge of a good battery. So we put a battery in the car, a new battery, and actually we put a glass mat, an AGM battery in the car, because it's the Lexus, which is a better battery than what the car was built with, no doubt. And that battery is an Optima, and it's manufactured and sold by Clarius. And just for your information, Clarius, 1 in 3 cars have a Clarius battery in the world. Unbelievable. So they not only generate a lot of batteries and make a lot of batteries, they also perform a lot of research and development. I'll tell you a little more about Clarius a little bit later in the program, but the bottom line, we replaced the battery and tested the car, and the alternator was terrific. It was up to par, no issues whatsoever. So she was a happy camper, albeit it was a a little helter-skelter there from about 4:20 when she made her first call until a little after 5:30 when she was delivered the car and picked the car up from our business. So that's the moral of the story there is if a battery's 3 to 5 years old, folks, it's just waiting for an opportunity to be stressed. And that stress could happen at any time. Luckily for this lady, it happened here versus on the road. We're going to take a call from Bill, who has a 2003 Suburban. Bill, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Connect. Thanks for holding.
How you doing?
Fine. What can I do for you?
All right. So I got a 2003 Suburban, and I've got this code that I can't get rid of. I had a number of codes for a while. I had a 0455, an 0449, and an 0433. I checked the car out. It said that the EVAP system was unable to reach its calibrated vacuum level.
Right.
After a while, I crawled under the car, and I noticed back by the fuel tank, the canister vent solenoid
Right.
had actually blown up. The motor part of it had gotten rusty.
Right.
And actually, expanded and blew the thing apart. So I figured that was probably replaced it, right? And
You replaced the assembly? You put assembly on it, Bill? The whole unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's the only way to do it.
And then, but now I still got this canister purge solenoid valve. It keeps telling me I got the incorrect voltage at the driver. Well, I've replaced that twice. I thought maybe sometimes you get a bad one, and I got it from a parts distributor online, and I always try to get the factory replacements.
Mm-hmm.
So I can turn the light out and drive the car, and I can drive it a day, 2 days, 3 days. As long as I don't shut it off, light will never come back on. If I shut the key off and turn it back on again, the light pops back on. And so I was talking to another friend of mine. We both been mechanics for like 40 years. And of course, we're retired. And so I was talking to him, and he had a roughly the same year Tahoe, which is basically the same car, just a little shorter. And his wife's car had the same problem. It kept coming up with his 433. And he took it to a shop, and the shop had it for like a couple of weeks. They couldn't get this thing to stop doing this. They did smoke tests. They did, the whole 9 yards. They replaced the valve. And finally what they found, they changed the 2 wires. You follow me?
Well, I'm listening to the story, and here's
they switched the 2 wires, and the problem went away. And I'm wondering if you've ever heard of something like that before.
No, and unless when you say switch the 2 wires, there are multiple wires, and of course the control module.
Well, the two at the purge valve solenoid.
The 2 at the purge valve solenoid. Well,
on the engine, yeah.
But that plug, it's a plug and play, and there's a terminal, and there's a female and male plug, and so someone would have had to change those 2 wires out. And let me say this: the purge solenoid is a simple open or close valve.
Right.
So a lot of electronics on today's cars use a series of pulses off and on. So, and Bill, what happens there is, if you were to blink your eyes, you'll see a dark light. But if you can blink your eyes fast enough, you never miss any. You could drive forever, or you could see forever or you can actually read because your mind retains that memory. Well, that's called dwell time. So some electronics, and the point here is that just like some fuel pumps and some fuel systems do not have pressure regulators, they regulate the pressure by pulsing the voltage to the fuel pump. So the pump is running off, and it's dwelled in so many times per minute or per second. That will depend on how long it's on as to how much pressure it generates. Because if you don't let it run continuously, you don't reach the maximum, or you reach beyond the maximum. So if you want to reduce the pressure, you turn the power on and off, on and off. The valve you're talking about.
Yeah, like a set of points back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. Like a open close, like flipping off a light. Period. But in this case, and here's the point. There's two wires. One's a power and one's a ground. So in my opinion, if it's a solenoid, it would not make any difference which way the voltage ran through that solenoid. You see what I'm saying? That's so it's beyond me at this, and it's electronics. Anytime you get into electronics, you open up a can of worms, and for those and Bill, here's the point. You need a wiring diagram to determine the color coding of the wire and which one goes to terminal 1 and terminal 2, and that will be on a wiring diagram. So I would say, stop replacing parts. You could go to perhaps alldata.com, and they have a consumer division, a website for consumers, and you could go there and see if you can have a wiring diagram, or if you've got a friend in the business, you can ask to see their wiring diagram. But you need to know what color wire is on 1, what color wire is on 2, and then you'll be able to discern whether or not you've got a cross wire, or whether or not it'd be dangerous and try to switch those wires. That's my advice, and don't touch the dial. I'll be back. Today's vehicles have more than 150 electrical accessories for safety, comfort, and sustainability, and much more than 20 years ago. Clarius is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries that are precision engineered to meet today's electrical demands. Things like backup cameras, GPS, navigation, entertainment systems, and start-stop technology. AGM batteries have up to 2 times the life of traditional batteries and are non-spillable. When you need a battery, make sure you ask for an AGM battery to meet today's evolving electrical needs. Visit autobatteries.com for more information. Berryman's B12 Chem Tool features HEST, or High Energy Solvent Technology. Using a combination of stronger solvents, HEST technology cleans injectors, carburetors, and combustion chambers. But don't take our word for it. According to Stephen B., Berryman products have been part of my automotive care and maintenance program since 1996. From additives and cleaners to sealants, Berryman products are a must for any gearhead and automotive enthusiast. Learn more about Berryman B12 Chem Tool and other great products at berrymanproducts.com. This car repair spotlight is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2017 RX 350 Lexus with 28,000 miles came in the shop for a 30,000-mile inspection. No problems, except the Lexus AC system had a musty AC odor. Our ASE-certified technician performed all factory-approved services, including a new key fob battery. Then we ordered a MicroGuard cabin air filter from our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional to cure the musty odor. We installed a Wix oil filter in this Lexus to make sure our 30,000-mile service included parts that matched or exceeded the factory specs. With 48 years in automotive service and repair, we choose the best brand parts that are of the highest quality. But of all the great services we performed on this Lexus, the main one our customer will notice is whether or not the musty odor is gone. That's why we make O'Reilly Auto Parts our first call. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. You know, folks, I want to share with you a few things that you need to know, just like we talked with Bill there to start with about his electronic issues. Vehicles, and without getting technical here, and Hannah will take your calls, and Ken is on the hook with on the phone now with South Carolina. We're going to go to you, Ken, in a minute, but so stand by. 888 Car Clinic is the number for you to call if you have a question of me, and understand I can help you, and I can help direct you to the right source, and I can help you with buzzwords that will allow you to better connect with the local technician. But I will share this with you, folks. You're not going to be able to fix automobiles yourself. The cars today are so sophisticated. Like Bill has just a simple code on it, won't go away. But when he turns the key off and reboots, that's because there's a hard fault. It's called a hard fault. And the hard fault in there means, unlike think of a light bulb that's blown out. And you turn the switch on. No matter how many times you turn the switch on, that same code, which means no light, in a car, it would mean the light would be on because the check engine light would be on because of the code. So whenever you have a vehicle that you boot up, like a new computer, and that when you boot it up, the lights are all on, and then as the engine goes through its self-check, and all computers go through their self-check, as you may well be familiar with that. Automobiles do the same thing, and in fact, it's beyond me how well they do work. But here's the bottom line. Automobiles today, from 96 and up, operate on low voltage, like 5 volts, and it's called reference voltage. And so if you sent me 5 volts and you're the computer, now the computer has the full voltage to back up the car, you know, with a fuel pump and run the fuel pump and what have you, but the computer doesn't handle those things. Relays handle those heavy loads. And so it's like your ignition switch. When you turn your key to the start, you know, and the starter draws 300 amps. So that wire, just imagine the starter battery cable. If you ran a battery cable from the battery to the ignition switch, and then from the ignition switch to the starter, and then you turn it off and on and crank, you'd have to have a heavy set of contacts, and you'd have to have an ignition switch the size of a grapefruit. So ignition switches don't handle that load. All the ignition switch does is send a reference voltage to the starter solenoid, which is a big relay that makes the starter drive. Well, to a lesser degree and lesser voltage, but the same operational modus of the vehicle, the operating mode of the vehicle, that's what computers do. You send a request to put the window down, but you don't send voltage to the window motor. You request the window to go down, and then the body control module connects a relay via a relay, and relays use very tender, very low amperage, low draw current. The relay closes, and then it connects the big wire from the battery to the motor in your door that puts the window down. And so those are the things, and here's the reason for explaining this for you, and Bill, if you're still tuned in and with your evap code. If you have a bad ground on any of the computer wiring, and there are hundreds of wires, thousands really. If you have a bad ground, or if you have high resistance within the wire, the computer will think it's doing its job, but it will never see the right voltage coming back, because a computer will send out 5 reference voltage, and then it will move whatever it's operating, whether it's a HVAC blend door or a starter solenoid or a window motor. The computer will actually see that you used 2 of the volts, you send 3 back. But if there's ohms resistance in the voltage going back or in the ground, then the computer sees an erroneous signal, and the computer says, wait, I got a problem here, and the light comes on. I said all that to say that it's frustrating, and wiring and erratic behavior of automobiles it is very difficult to trace, and it requires specialized equipment and specialized training, and that's what ASE, Automotive Service Excellence Technicians, are all about. So I just, that's just a little information for you and for our caller Bill. Let's go to Ken in South Carolina. Ken, thank you so much for holding. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Thank you, Bobby, for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I had a 04 Dodge, and I used when I changed oil, I put a quart of Likis in it, the oil treatment, and I never had to add any oil between oil changes.
Okay.
So I bought a Hemi engine, but people are telling me don't put the Likis in the Hemi engine. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know what people you're talking about. Let me explain a little bit about oils. All oils are refined from crude. Synthetic oil, which you should use in your Hemi. I assume you're using synthetic oil, Ken, or are you?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you use synthetic oil, actually, you can use conventional oil too. The need, although conventional oil doesn't have the protection and it is not as good for your engine or protective of your engine as synthetic oil is. And also, conventional oils, because the molecules are all different sizes, doesn't flow well, and it doesn't flow easily and quickly in like really cold weather. And so the extremes of temperature are demanding on oil. The hotter the engine gets, then the more protection you need. The colder the weather gets, the better flow you need, because when you crank an engine up in the morning, it takes time to get the pump running, because it's not like our hearts. Our hearts run all the time or we die. Well, an engine's heart only runs after the engine is running, and therefore that initial start can cause problems. What additives are made for, and Likis makes a good product. What additives are made for, they add more of the lubricity, like zinc and phosphorus. And Ken, the best thing for you to do is just Google ZDDP, and that's zinc and phosphorus and other additives that racing engines incorporate, and older oils used to incorporate a lot of these. However, ZDDP has, according to the EPA, could damage a catalytic converter. So it's possible that you could damage a catalytic converter by adding an abundance or maybe too much additive to your engine. And I've used additives for years, and I use them today. In my car, I use a synthetic oil with no additives, because the oil that I use has the quality that protects my engine. So with regard to the Hemi engine, here's what the precautions, and here's what these people, quote unquote, are referring to, I imagine. And I don't know, because I don't know who they are, but I will tell you this: the viscosity of the oil can be and is affected when you add an additive. And changing the viscosity of oil will affect the oil flow through tiny tolerances and orifices that are that cut cylinders off. So you want to make sure that you don't make a thicker oil by adding an additive to it. So, and there's no way you would know what the viscosity is. So if your Hemi calls for 0.20 or 530 or 1030, whatever it calls for, probably 520, just make sure year-round, winter or summer, that you use the proper viscosity. And if you use synthetic oil, you really don't need a booster. And that's what Likis is, a booster. Any questions?
It's Mobil 1.
Mobil 1's a good oil. We use Mobil 1. We sell it. And we use Mobil 1. So it's a good oil, it's synthetic. In fact, Mobil 1 was on the synthetic bandwagon long before Americans were. I mean, I say that because 15 years ago, 50%, more than 50% of all European car owners use synthetic oil, and probably about 5% of Americans today. That's a complete change because of the design and the tolerances and emissions control in engines. And there's a new oil out, and there's even oil that you can buy, an oil additive have you heard about this, that stops engines from smoking, burning oil. And so how do you put an oil in the engine that's burning oil and it doesn't smoke? It's one factor. It's called flash point. The additive that they use in stop smoking additives, and I don't recommend that, but the additives increases the flash point of the oil. So the oil is still contaminating the getting above the rings and in the combustion chamber. It just doesn't get burned because it requires a higher flash point. And the flash means that when the piston goes down, there's always oil left on the cylinder wall. And that oil gets flashed off, and that's how it burns. That's how engines burn oil with bad oil rings. So if you put an oil in there that didn't burn, or that didn't burn at the same temperature as normal oil, and I don't know what the flash points are, probably 480 degrees, which means when they reach 480 degrees, and I'm not sure of that number, so don't quote me, but I've done some studies on oil, and I have found that what I thought I knew about oil and what I didn't, and everyone has their opinion about oil. For my nickel, Ken, you can just run straight Mobil 1 synthetic and not worry about adding an additive to your Hemi. That's the short answer.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking my call.
I appreciate your call.
I try to listen to you every week. I've learned a lot from your program.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well, Ken. Okay. Folks, thank you. Bye-bye. That's all that really matters. And I don't know the answers to everything, but I've learned that. But I do know that there's a lot of questions out there, and I know that Craig from South Carolina. Well, South Carolina is really hot this morning, and Richard is on in another call. But we also have in the queue Matt Bannock, and he is from Gold Eagle. So I'm going to talk with him after I come back from the break, and we'll see what's going on with the Gold Eagle, because this person knows about additives, and so there are fuel additives, but you have to understand any additive, whether it's for oil or differential, and there are additives for differential that have EP qualities, extreme pressure. So if you have a traction lock differential with clutches in it, you need to add a gear oil when you change the oil in the differential, or if your car gets in a flood, and I'll share a little bit about how to check your car if it gets in a flood when I come back. In the meantime, we're going to hear from Matt, and I'm going to ask him about, I have a classic Porsche that I don't drive. What about the fuel in it? When I come back, you'll find out. A 2015 Ford Escape recently came into the shop, 120,000 miles and going strong, but it was starting to hesitate, and the customer also complained of declining fuel economy. This 2-liter turbocharged engine is GDI, or gas direct injection, and special maintenance is needed in certain areas, particularly the fuel system. We suspected carbon buildup, and sure enough, using a borescope through the spark plug hole, there was definite evidence of carbon buildup. GDI engines are different in the way they inject fuel, and it can create some issues with repair and maintenance. That's why it's important to use products rated for GDI, like Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit. Each step of the process is designed with GDI engines in mind. We use the kit, and after 2 weeks on the road, the car is performing noticeably better, and MPG has improved a bit. Learn more about Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. What a terrific show we're having this morning, folks. Thank you for tuning in every Saturday from 10 till noon right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. And speaking of the car clinic, I'm the proud owner of a classic car, a 1980 Porsche Weissach. So proper storage has always been top of mind with me. And on the Car Clinic hotline with us is Matt Bannock, Senior Director of Marketing at the Gold Eagle Company, to share some storage tips with us today. I can't wait because I think I know a little bit about storage, but we've got the guru in the house. Matt, welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. Yeah, car storage is one of our favorite things to talk about.
Well, you know, Matt, to that end, we're fast approaching the time of year where folks start to store their vehicles. And when should Car Clinic listeners, our listeners and viewers, think about their vehicles as stored? If a vehicle is not driven for at least 3 or 4 months, or is that considered storage?
Kind of depends on what's your fuel. I mean, we make stable, so we look at that a lot. If you think that gas is going to be in your tank for more than 30 days, you should be adding our additive. But when you start putting stuff away for 3 or 4 months, yeah, you should start taking those other precautions that you need to protect, like your paint and your interior and everything else, because you never know what could happen, or time can just get away from you sometimes.
Well, to that end, I agree. In fact, I've learned the hard way, which is why I'm so excited to have you in the house today. Years ago, I had a special car that I stored and kept the windows up. Well, we live in the tropics in a humid area, and the white leather interior turned yellow because I kept the windows up. Well, I learned not to do that. But let's switch gears. How long will fuel stay fresh, and what really causes fuel to go bad?
So the regular gas that most go buy, so most of the gas you buy today has 10% ethanol in it, the rest gasoline, and that has a shelf life of about 30 days. So that's why I usually say, depending on how you drive your car, if you drive it every day, you probably don't need to put something in it. But if you drive it only occasionally and that gas sits in there for a month or two at a time, you should be adding stable every time you fill up. Really, you want to stabilize fresh gas, so the earlier, like at the pump, is when you want to stabilize it. But when it goes bad, the things that, if you don't use an additive, the things that can happen is the gas turns darker, it starts to gum up, it loses its light ends kind of quicker. That's the flammability portion of it. So it can gum up those needle valves, your carburetor jets, everything else. So really, I mean, you want to add it every time you fill up if you don't drive it that much, or right before you put it away for storage.
I got it. Now, let's talk about fuel stabilizers. Do they help?
They absolutely help. I mean, there's lots out there. We do a lot of third-party testing. We have a lot of OEM recommendations, and you can pretty much ask anyone who's been around cars enough. They know that you need to start adding that stuff in there before you put something away for a long time, or you're just going to be rebuilding the carburetor and not have a good time when you pull that car out the spring.
On the Car Clinic hotline with us, folks, is Matt Bannock, the Senior Director of Marketing at Gold Eagle. Stable, you've heard me talk about Stable. It's a product that I use in my classic Porsche. Let's talk about the Stable, the product, and the storage. Can the Gold Eagle products be used in all fuel types and with any engine?
Yeah, I mean, gas is gas at some point. I mean, people might have a collector car or a boat, or, I mean, a lot of people have lawnmowers, and all those things are kind of susceptible because they sit a lot. you can use it in any type of gasoline, whether it be your regular gas to your car for your 4-stroke engines like your lawnmower, or your 2-strokes for your weed whackers and such. It works in all of them. It's managing that gas and making sure you know when you bought it and when you stabilize it. Try not to use stuff that's old.
Got it. Now, we know it's necessary to use those products like in my case where I've got the Porsche, but let's shift gears just quickly to today's modern fuel systems. We talked about carburetors, but carburetors are long since gone. What about today's gasolines and the injected engines of today? Do they need the same treatment?
Yeah, I mean, newer cars, you look at, starting probably 1985 or so, you start seeing pretty much everything go to fuel injection. So it's a little less acceptable. Those pressures on the fuel rails and everything else are more than your carburetor that runs at 4 to 7 PSI or whatever that might be. But you still have issues with the gas going bad, still dark out, still gumming things up. It's still a portion of it. Does it last a little bit longer? Yeah, because your fuel system's sealed and you have less issue for moisture. But it doesn't change the fact that gasoline it eventually goes bad, and a lot of people don't realize that. Kind of like everyone knows that milk goes bad, but they don't really realize the gas goes bad because they've never really seen it, because it goes in your tank and you don't see it again.
Well, you just hit me between the eyes. You talk about milk going bad. I use non-fat milk, and it comes dated, good until the date. And I can tell you, Matt, without exception, I have found that if it says it's good to September 20th, on the eve of the 19th, it goes bad. Those bottles, they know their stuff. And so gasoline, of course, as I understand, and I want to make sure that I know right, because when you're not on the air with me, I'll have questions and I want to be qualified to answer those questions. Here's what I do on my car, and I want you to just bat me back in my cage if I'm wrong or tell me if I'm right. I fill my tank in my Porsche 95% full, and then I add stable to it, and then I drive it a couple of blocks to make sure I've thoroughly mixed all that additive and the fuel, and then I store it with the windows down, and I leave it on the ground, although you can, jack it up on jacks, but I do drive it occasionally, but I don't drive it often enough to burn that fuel. So I guess my question is specifically, how long can I expect the fuel in my car that I don't drive, and so therefore I don't use the gas that's in it? How long will the stable keep my E10 fuel fresh before I really should think about how to drive it or how to get rid of the fuel? And then the last question for that is, where can everyone go that's tuned in here in Car Clinic for more information about this very topic from Gold Eagle?
So I would say that you get an A+ on the way you're treating your fuel and everything else, because filling that thing 95% full with fresh gas, and then putting the fuel stabilizer or stable in it and running it a little bit gets that stabilized fuel distributed to your whole fuel system, so it's up to carburetors or up to injectors, and does all it's supposed to do. If you do that, your fuel will be good for 2 years. So you already stabilized fresh fuel, and that's the best case scenario. All your other storage tactics, it's a matter of preference. At some point, some people like to go to the nth degree with jack stands and car covers and everything else.
Right.
The only thing that you might want to look at is they sell like damp rid types of things you put in your interior to make sure it's absorbing the moisture, so you don't get any issues if you're in that really humid area. That might be something good for you to look at.
Great idea.
You have a good 2 years on your gas, the gas side of that. So I think you're doing the right things.
Okay, and one last question then, and folks, Matt Bannock is the Senior Director of Marketing for Gold Eagle. Where can our Car Clinic listeners and viewers go for more information?
Well, I'm really biased, but I think our goldeagle.com, our website, which you go there, you search stable.com, it'll come take you to kind of the same place. We have lots of articles to tell you the right way to store cars. It'll take you to the nth detail of like where you should store it, being on concrete, the air absorber from moistures. Different types of car covers. They'll take you through everything, so you can go as far as you want with how well you want to store your car, what your preference is.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us, Matt, on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. It's a subject that I practice, and it's a question that, quite candidly, a lot of people that have classic cars, number one, they're not really sure if theirs is the classic car, but it doesn't have to be a classic car to be stored if you're going overseas or on TDY in the military. And of course, Pensacola, is the Naval Air Station is here, so we have a lot of military folks, and quite candidly, we work in our service shop which is where our studios are located within our service shop, a lot of military vehicles. So it's great information. I'm glad that you came back today, and thank you for your time. Matt Bannock, Senior Director of Marketing for Gold Eagle. Folks, it's goldeagle.com. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today on Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
That's cool. Really, he's the knowledgeable individual, and that's straight from the horse's mouth. And that's what we try to bring you folks, and we do that on a regular basis every Saturday from 10 till noon right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Craig is first in the queue, and then also I see that Andy, that's going to be an interesting call from Andy. I can't wait to talk with him. And Richard has called in for several weeks, but first we're going to go to South Carolina. Craig with an 03 GMC Savannah. Craig, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for taking my call. Appreciate the help.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this Savannah, I got an air conditioning problem. About a year or so ago, I had the system purged completely, and all. No, they put in the new coolant and everything.
Okay.
And about a year later, it started blowing warm air. So I took it back to the same guy, and he found that it had that the compressor belt wasn't there. He said, well, it must have thrown that belt. He'd never heard of it before, but that's what happened. So he put one on, and I had cold air for about 2 months, and then it started blowing warm air again, so I took it back to the same guy. And the slack adjuster, he called it a slack adjuster. He showed it to me. He said that must have been seizing up, and so I put a new one on. And sure enough, I had cold air again. But 11 days later, it started blowing warm air again. And at that point, I've got about $425 into it, and now I've got warm air again. And a strange thing is, I hear a growl somewhere under the hood, but mainly when you turn to the right, every now and then there'll be a strange growl. I'm wondering if that could have anything to do with it. Now I'll be quiet and let you think about it.
Well, thanks a lot, Craig. I appreciate it. Here's the bottom line. Are there any other accessories that are driven by that same belt? Or do you know?
I don't really know.
See, you could be in the right neighborhood, but at the wrong house, because if there's a tensioner, and that's what a slack adjuster is the tensioner, and a tensioner, automatic tensioners are used on vehicles today, so that when the belt wears, that tensioner is spring loaded and takes up the slack and continues to take the slack up. So it sounds to me, and my concern is that you have from all indications, you would immediately, the best answer that I could think of, you got a compressor problem. But let me tell you, if you put a new belt on it and there's no noise from the compressor and it blows cold air, then I don't believe you have a compressor problem, because you have a physical problem. So the to-do for you, the short answer here is that you need to look, or at least have your technician to look at this. It sounds like you've got a good connection with that individual, even though you spent $400+ just because you had multiple problems. The last time the belt didn't work, he replaced the tensioner. So now you need to go back and ask him to look, and he needs to look as well. Number one, I presume that he replaced the tensioner assembly, which includes the bracket and the arm and a new pulley, which has a new bearing in the pulley. That's number one. And number two, ask him to see what other accessories are involved in driven by that same belt. Because if that same belt drives like the power steering pump, which is possible, then of course you would have known that, because when the tensioner went bad, if the air conditioner didn't blow, the car couldn't drive because the power steering wouldn't work. So I doubt that the power steering belt is associated with the air conditioner belt, but there could be other issues. There could be alternator, and an alternator belt slipping. You might hear it and you might not. So the short answer is, and what I suggest for you to do is to put behind you what's been done, except note that, because you've got the bills and you've got the knowledge, and then see go back and see why that air conditioner is not blowing cold at this time. And then if the belt is okay, Craig, then your technician needs to look at the pressure, the operating pressures of the air conditioning system, which shall not exceed 250 pounds on the high side. So if you have a high pressure, of course, if you had that much high pressure, the belt wouldn't it would continue to drive the air conditioner and the air conditioner would pop off. There's a blow off valve when it reaches a maximum, and I don't know what the pressure limit is, but like a hot water heater.
Valve.
Yeah, there's a relief valve like a hot water heater, but you never want it to go off, because if it goes out, then there's blockage and you've got pending damage of the compressor. So go back and see what else is common with that belt, and if that belt is slipping. And then also, if there's nothing else common, then the least that he needs to do is to hook his gauges to the system to see what the operating pressures are. That's your to-do. You got it?
Yes, that sounds good. Now, that growl that I hear every now and then, usually when you're turning to the right, but sometimes when you're just going down the road, it'll growl. I mean, a real strange growl. Could that have anything to do with what's running on that belt, or is that something completely different, do you think?
I think it's different. I think it is different, but what I suggest that you do is look at the fluids of the vehicle to include the power steering fluid. And I'll tell you this, if the power steering fluid has 50,000 miles on it, it needs to be changed, and the easiest way to determine the condition of power steering is with the engine warm and not normal temperature, but turned off. Take the cap off the power steering and smell the fluid, and you will be surprised. You don't have to have any knowledge about fluids or be technician savvy at all, because what you're going to smell is burned, oxidized power steering fluid, which means it needs to be exchanged completely, and that requires a special machine. Hey, gotta go. Thank you so much, Craig, for your...
I really appreciate this, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in. And I know that we have online Andy, and I know that we have Richard. The problem here is that we're at the end of this first hour. So I'm going to ask the both of you to either hold or you can call back. We will come back live with the second hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, and you'll be on the air at precisely 11 minutes after the hour. That's when after the break of the next hour. So we sort of ran long. I had so many questions from Matt Bannock with Gold Eagle. And I just, when I get involved with calls, there's no short answer. I guess is the problem with automobiles, and with I guess that's true for life. There's no short answer. You take it when it comes your way. And folks, we're going to come back your way after the break at the top of the hour with the second hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Likis, you're going to love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, you never want to get surprised by a dead battery. A vehicle's original battery generally lasts about 3 to 5 years, but many fail long before then. Next time you're in for an oil service, have the technician test your battery. Better now than too late. Today's vehicles have start-stop systems, navigation, radio amplifiers, electric fuel pumps, 25 or more onboard computer modules, and serious electronic controls that depend on a strong, fully charged battery. Make sure the car you're driving has a healthy battery. Make yourself a note. Go to autobatteries.com and see for yourself how a battery can keep you safely driving down the road or put you on the side, just like that. At autobatteries.com, you'll see battery technology, battery testing, how to choose the battery, how to jumpstart your battery, and more about AGM batteries, my choice. I'm not here to make you a battery expert, rather to help you better understand why a reliable battery is essential for your road trips. Go to autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's a berverding. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Count down to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning, folks. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thank you so much for holding. And I see that actually Andy has held through the top of the break and the top of the hour for the second hour. So we're certainly going to go to him as soon as we come back from this first commercial break. You know, you got to have those commercial breaks. But here's the bottom line. Hannah will take your calls. Let's get started earlier in this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic so you can make sure that you get your question answered on the air. 888 Car Clinic is the number. It's 888-227-2546. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part this morning by Motor Red, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and radiator caps and engine management systems like variable valve timing solenoids and oxygen sensors and those throttle control position switches that send all of the sensors to signal to the computer. So what? So that your computer can tune your engine as you drive. Very cool. You can learn more about Motorrad products and their industry-leading application coverage at motorrad.com. That's motorrad.com. Okay, let's kick it off. 888-227-2546. I mentioned earlier in today's broadcast from our friends at the Car Care Council, which are partnered with, how to tell if water has been flooded and damaged and there's water damage in your car. So later on in today's program, this hour, I'll share some information on maybe you don't buy a car that's had water damage when I come back. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. We recently had an 09 Honda Pilot come into the shop with 169,000 miles on the odometer. The vehicle owner said the cabin was starting to smell like coolant, and he was concerned. Upon closer inspection, we found a heater core leak. Choices were to keep the vehicle and make a repair, which at best is half a day's labor plus parts, or sell the vehicle and buy a different used car that could have its own set of problems. We presented a third option, K-Seal. You've heard me talk about K-Seal before. Well, I don't just talk about it. We actually use the product in our service shop. It's a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Other sealers use sodium silicate, which has the tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Our customer went with K-Seal, and 1 month later, no more leak. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started, folks. Good morning. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're going to go directly to Andy, who is in the queue and has held for a while. Andy, thank you so much for your consideration and your patience. You are first in because you've been around for a while. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, and again, thanks for your hold.
Hey, Bobby, thank you, and it was my pleasure holding on. But in the time I talked to your screener, I was in Pensacola. Now I'm out at Navarre Beach at the restaurant. I do have a truck question, but first I want to just say that I met you last night personally. Personally, it was a great experience, and we know we have a lot in common. I really enjoyed your company, and I hope to get a more close personal relationship in the future. But you're definitely a man that knows, and you claim to be an expert in cars, and I can justify that. No question about it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you and your lovely wife last evening in a restaurant. And folks, this gentleman could tell some stories that bring tears to your eyes. You were actually, give us a short story of 2011, Andy, because you were there in the city, right?
Yes, I was. And, I spent 20 years in the fire department, retired after 9/11. It was a horrific day, as we all know. But I've come down here to kind of never have to experience that kind of trauma again in my life. I have a new wife and a new life. I run Broussard's restaurants. If nobody's been there, Broussard's Bayou Grill, both in Pensacola. Today I'm standing on the deck in Navarre. And I just appreciate the good opportunity to get a fresh start here in Pensacola, and it's just been an amazing experience.
Well, we're delighted, and it's our privilege to have you, and it was a great time that I enjoyed last evening, and just your experience. So what's your car question?
Well, my car question is, I had built for me in 2015 a Dodge Ram 1500 Hemi, and I read online a lot of times about, we use it now in the company to make deliveries to Winn-Dixie and such, and at 100,000 miles, almost to the number, it started to have a cold knock. So I kind of explored it and looked at why it would do that, and it was about the octane in the fuel. So I switched from an 87 to an 89 octane, and the knock went away for, I'd say, a good 2 months, 3 months. And we're now at 120, 130,000, and I still have that cold knock coming back. It's just starting to come back now.
Well,
is there something else I'm missing?
Well, yes, there is, and number one, this engine and all engines like to be blown out. And by blowing out, it means like racing, which we don't have an opportunity to do because you don't drive that way. And besides, this is a company vehicle. So there are, professionally, we perform what's called a fuel injection service and also a debris cleaning service, where we use a commercial grade chemical that dissolves carbon buildup. So the challenge is your engine has more compression after 100,000 miles than it did from the factory, because the combustion chamber, like if you shave a head, Andy, and which we did years ago and still do, when you shave the head, you make the chamber smaller, and that increases the compression ratio. So if you haven't shaved the head on this vehicle, however, the engine has a higher compression ratio now because there's carbon buildup in the combustion chamber and on top of the piston. So where there's carbon buildup, it's the same thing as solid, because it is a solid, coated, baked carbon. So the easiest thing to do would be, and if you got a pen, write this down. There's a company that we're partnered with, and it's Berryman Products. Berryman Products, and I promote their product on air, and I use their product in the service shop, and they make tremendous and terrific engine interior cleaners, for lack of a better description. But in the Berryman, there's a B60, which is a chem tool that is a very powerful carbon remover, and you might this is a perfect opportunity for you to try this product, and you can find it probably at O'Reilly Auto Parts. But what I would recommend that you do this afternoon, when you get a chance, go to Berryman Products, B-E-R-R-Y, berrymanproducts.com, and look through their decarbonizing additives. And understand this, there's no such thing as a miracle cure, but in your case, because it's a cold knock, you see the computer will detune the engine and reduce the spark ignition timing to eliminate knocks, because there are knock sensors in the vehicle. However, in the morning, the computer has to get fired up and the engine has to reach a certain temperature before its actions are taking place. So that's when you're hearing the knock, and I'm assuming, just from my years of experience, that this engine has excessive carbon buildup, and the least expensive, least painful, we call that, Andy, the least painful, expensive way is to add a decarbonizing agent to the fuel so that we know that it gets into the chamber. You don't add it to the oil, because that doesn't reach the chamber. In fact, that's what's wrong. Right. And one more thing, and this goes, folks, for everyone who's tuned in. Your Hemi, Andy, and every engine on the American roads today has a PCV system, positive crankcase ventilation. And just like you're in the restaurant business, right? Well,
yes, sir.
Above your stoves are hoods, and by law, you put a lot of money into those vents that draw the vapors and the oil off of the griddle when you're frying or whatever it is that you're doing. And that accumulates, and you know well this, underneath the hood of the stove in your right. kitchen. So, but in a car, that same oil vapors that are in the bowels of the engine, in the belly of the engine, get sucked into and drawn into the intake. And we call that black lung disease, because what that performs is an oil slick on the intake plenum and all the intake ports, and then it solidifies not only in the plenum chamber but on the backside of the intake valves. That's a common problem, and here's one other factor. Some engines, maybe not your Hemi today, but most engines have an EGR, exhaust gas recirculation. So what that does is for emissions control. So if you put oil on a wall or on a chamber, and then you throw bits of burned exhaust, which has particles in it, and then you let that coke and heat, that builds up layer by layer by layer. And after 100,000 miles, well, actually after 30,000 miles, there's a higher compression, which is not good in this case because of the carbon, and there's a blockage of the airways because the lungs of the engine have this, what I call black lung disease. So for that matter, you should use not only the fuel system cleaner from Berryman, but also the the air injection. And there's an air chemical that you put into the mouth of the engine. But for you, I'm going to recommend that you use the fuel first and see what that does for you. Any questions?
Nope. That's as usual expert advice. I appreciate it very much.
We appreciate you.
Get right on that today.
And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And listen,
yeah,
it was, again, I just want to say what a spectacular pleasure it was to find out so many things in common. Again, I appreciate you listening to my story, and it was wonderful to hear your life story. Me and my wife, Lacey, look forward to our next encounter. And one of the other things we have in common is that I've started a podcast. I know you said I should talk about that a little bit. Jackie's Emerald Coast. Jackie's my family name. That's what my mother and my sisters and my nieces call me, is Jackie. And it's all about restaurants, hotels, and events that are going on in the Emerald Coast. So hopefully you would tune into that, and we'll exchange tuning in.
Well, that's a great idea, and what an asset that you, to our community and to our listeners across the nation, who obviously are not in our Gulf Coast area, but should they come this way, they definitely want to tune into your program to hear more about the area, the local area, because this is a national program. But and indeed, we'll stay in touch. And again, nice to have met you, and thanks for your call this morning, and the best to you and also to Lacey.
Thank you, Bobby, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, my friend. And so, folks, not often do I get to meet people. Oh, well, I meet a lot of people, but not often do I make immediate friends. But this fellow shared with me last night stories, and one of them was about 9/11. So I had to share that with you. That now's a good time for Hannah to shut that down, and we'll go back up with the right one. The bottom line is, I'm here to help you better understand the nature of the beast that you drive, which is your car. It doesn't have to be a beast. It can be mismanners. But if you have an issue with it, by all means, you call, and I'll help you work through those issues. 888-227-2546. That's 888 Car Clinic. And again, I want to say a special thank you to our Berryman partner. Bobby Likis actually is brought to you in part this morning by Berryman Oil Extender. I'll tell you a little more about that when I come back from the break. In the meantime, 888-227-2546. Thank you for tuning in. Don't go away. I'll be back. In the service bay this week, a longtime customer's 2000 Ford Taurus. He'd been complaining about a humming noise at highway speeds and grinding when he stopped. With 55,000 miles on the odometer, the driver's had the vehicle since new and never had any work done. No brakes, no suspension. A thorough inspection revealed a number of potential problems: a failing left front wheel bearing, worn-out rear brake pads and rotors, and the beginnings of a leaking brake caliper. Our choice to solve these problems? Motorcraft. Brake systems and suspension repair represent serious work you want done right the first time. Choosing quality parts is critical to ensuring vehicle reliability and longevity. Motorcraft quality brake and suspension parts are engineered for Ford and Lincoln vehicles. From the hub to the rotor, calipers, brake pads, and wheel bearings, Motorcraft quality parts provide you with the stopping power and stability needed for your vehicle. Learn more about Motorcraft brake and suspension parts at motorcraft.com. That's motorcraft.com. Motorcraft, right part, priced right. We recently performed a major service on a 1996 F-150. The vehicle had just under 200,000 miles on it. In addition to fluids and filters, we changed the spark plugs and boots, performed a cooling system flush, and replaced the thermostat, hoses, and drive belts. After a few weeks, the owner noticed a small leak coming from the area where the transmission bolted onto the block. Using a pressure tester, we found that coolant was seeping from one of the freeze plugs at the rear of the engine. This repair would require several hours of labor and another few days or so in the shop. Given the truck's age and the fact it was just in the shop for service, we suggested K-Seal, a one-step permanent multi-purpose system for coolant leak repair that won't clog radiators or heater cores. K-Seal stops leaks and can also prevent future leaks. After driving the truck for a week, the owner called and let us know the leak had stopped. K-Seal is available at fine retailers everywhere, like Napa Auto Parts. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip.
From Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I'm all yours, folks. 888 Car Clinic. Now's the time to get in. I have to say that as I was talking with Fabio, our producer, during the break, I did meet Andy last night. And the stories that he shared with me that we didn't share, we won't share on air, about 9/11 would make you cry. And so we're going to cry together, if you will, because it was horrific. And I asked him, and I'll just get personal here just a minute. Please allow me. I asked him, how did you manage to do all that you had to do with all that, with all that was going on? And he said, I concentrated on my job. I'm trained to do that, like our firefighters and all the firefighters in New York City for 9/11. And he said, we just did our job. And I said, well, how did you, were you affected by that? Well, yes, sure, he said, I was affected. But in the time, like an EMT, someone who's trained for emergencies, that's who you need on your side. And I'll tell another quick story. For years, I went to Sebring and watched the 12-hour race. And a dear friend of mine, and was my family a doctor, was working one of the corners down there because his daughter actually married the person that put on the race. And so he was invited to come down and be the doctor. In every corner at Sebring, that's a road race course, they have to have 2 EMTs, an ambulance, and a doctor. And so my doctor, who was Bill Nass, a wonderful individual who's passed, he told me, he said, I'm really a waste of time here. He said, I'm just here because by the rules they have to have him. He said, these 2 gentlemen that are with me, the EMTs, they can do more in an emergency situation than any doctor can do because they're trained to do that. So I was thinking and collectively putting those stories together about my experience with my friend on the racetrack in Sebring, Florida, versus Andy's experience at 9/11 in New York City. And so hats off to all the emergency folks that perform under pressure. That is really, I'm humbled is what I am. Okay, now we have a question from Captain Jim in Las Vegas, who is a dear friend of mine whom I've never met face to face and will one day. That's on my bucket list, by the way, Captain Jim. You are. And but he has a question. He says, when you have a keyless entry and a push-button starter button, and you have to step on the brake in order to start the car by pushing the start button, when you step on the brake, is that the same thing as turning the key? The answer is no. And I was just wondering, Captain Jim goes on to say, if when you step on the brake, does that start the fuel pump before you hit the starter button? And that's 2 questions in one, and the answer to both is no. But here's what does happen. You can push the start button, and that turns on the ignition. And then if you let off the button and step on the brake, nothing happens. So, literally, nothing happens. Now, when does the fuel pump run? Well, that's very interesting because in Audi cars, and this is interesting to me because I've just learned this in the last year, that you when you open the door and the interior lights come on, even in a Ford product, the fuel pump runs momentarily to restore the pressure that's been lost while it's parked. And in some cars, when you walk up to the car and the key fob recognizes the car, so you're within, say 36 inches or 5 feet, 4 feet, whatever that signal strength is there, then some cars are designed so that the fuel pump will come on momentarily to pressurize and prime the pump before you even open the door. I think it's amazing that what cars have these days. And to that end, we actually had a Ford come in that on the hook that didn't run because it had a fuel pump problem and the interior lights didn't work, and the same function. When the interior lights came on, the fuse would blow because the pump was shorted. Now, is that strange? No, it's just the way it was designed. But if you don't know that, you really better not get into the business of repairing automobiles. Let's go to Texas and take a call from Joe, and then I'll share with you some information, as I said earlier, about how do you know when a car that you're thinking about buying, a used car, has been in a flood, from our Car Care Council partners. But first, Joe, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good morning, Mr. Likis.
Good morning, sir.
Long-time listener to your show, and I find it interesting because a lot of the problems that come up are results of burning liquid gasoline. And so I have a request that you take an hour of one of these shows in the future and talk about one of the solutions to that. And it's not it's not electric vehicles, but natural gas for transportation is a growing area, and the key is to get it into the passenger vehicles. I've been driving my F-150 natural gas biofuel for the last 5 years. I have never had a more maintenance-free vehicle.
Agreed.
As far as engine wear and tear. I change my oil once a year. I did my 100,000-mile tune-up at 115, and the spark plugs were still clean, just worn down. And I have an octane of 131. So just a request that you go into an hour of your program talking about what mechanics would have to do to service these vehicles, what customers need to know about running them, because it's the best-kept secret. It's such a good secret that our politicians will give you $7,500 to buy an EV that you can't get, but not a penny to convert to all U.S.-based, all clean, or anywhere from 23% to 98% cleaner vehicle using natural gas.
I agree. And
it's
Joe,
it's something that needs to be addressed.
I agree, Joe, and I appreciate that. And folks, Joe, people want to know, who are tuned in, why natural gas is superior to liquid gasoline. And folks, here's the problem. I could be sitting on 1 million gallons of gas, and I have a 4-inch pipe come up, and as long as the 4-inch pipe that was attached to the 1 million gallons of gas below me was on the surface, I could put a match out in the gas, because the only thing that burns with liquid fuel is after the fuel is converted to gas. Natural gas is already converted when it goes in the engine. And so all of the yuck and all of the debris, and Joe, you're right, all of the debris and the toxins and the fuel, fuel is dirty. And fuel liquid gasoline has a little more than 1,000 different chemicals within the fuel. And so the natural gas has already been converted to air, or to gaseous state, and that's why it's so clean. And you're right, we converted cars. We did that in the 70s and 80s, and in Canada, that's a huge business in Canada, and it is an opportunity for us to have cleaner vehicles. And you hit the nail on the head with regard to carbon buildup, to all of those side effects of burning liquid gasoline, because in the combustion chamber. And Joe, another, as far as emissions goes, in a combustion chamber, the last 1 or 1.5% of the chemical that doesn't burn is where pollution comes from. No engine that runs gasoline is clean. And that's why we have catalytic converters that scrub that dirty stuff that comes out of our engine, even with all the technology that we have. But you're right. What's driving the bus?
Exactly.
What's not driving the bus?
And what's driving the bus, what's priming this is the fact that municipalities at least are getting on, and most of the refuse fleets in the country, a lot of the bus fleets in the metropolitan areas, any of these things that return to base are using natural gas on a growing basis. But again,
and they also have
the individual's not incentivized to even look into it, much less to take a jump into
You're
it.
right, and so you're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 to transfer, or $6,000 to $8,000 to take a
yes, which happens to be the tax credit that EV buyers are given.
So what we need then, so Joe, here we go. Now here's the root of the money. Follow the money, and that's
Absolutely.
just So what we need is tax credits, and this is for our politicians, and we have in Rogers, Arkansas, we have KURM, and the Colonel Kermit. That's one of our stations for years and years and years. His son is a senator, and occasionally I'll get calls from him. And I did get a call after I had a show, Joe, that I talked about the road tax and the tax we pay on gasoline that's supposed to go for our roads. And at one time when there was an extra percentage of road tax, it wasn't used. It went to the general fund and not where it was supposed to be earmarked to go to repairing bridges and those. And to this day, what we need. I don't know if you'll follow this or not, but I don't know what your beliefs are, or your politically, and that's not the point here. But as far as I'm concerned, we should be paying a nickel a gallon for gasoline that goes and is directly to roads and bridge repairs, because that's a deficit of billions of dollars. That's been that way for 15 years.
Well, let me take that a different direction.
Okay.
Fuel does not perform wear and tear on roads. The type of fuel you burn does not determine if a road's going to wear out. The only thing that determines that is gross vehicular weight.
Yes.
So in this future of electric vehicles, non-gasoline vehicles, you're going to be putting gas taxes on less and less people. So you need to scrap any federal and state gasoline tax, just make it illegal, and go to a gross vehicular weight tax that you pay once a year when you do your registration. And then the money can be tracked a lot closer. It's easier to track $10 bills than quarters. That's the problem.
That's another slant, and that's another. Let me ask this question, because California 5 years ago proposed the miles tax. So if I drive an EV, and I'm incentivized to buy an EV because I don't use gas, but I'm using the roads, so I'm not paying my fair share. So that's why California, and they had a proposition, and I don't know if they ever went through. Oregon was on bait, was on board with that as well, and other states were looking at what's going to happen. So as you were, you had, if you bought a car that used less gas, then you paid less money for the road taxes, but you're still using the same road that everyone else is. So where's that?
And your weight causes the damage on it.
Well, yes, and of course, does that mean that semis, they pay more? How does that work?
Well, they're already paying it at the weigh station. They're already paying for their weight. They're already paying a tax on that. So you can cap them because they're doing business.
Okay.
And that's just going to get passed. This is for that whole strata of consumers who are trying to get around and evading any tax payment.
Okay.
And it would hurt me worse because my natural gas vehicle has an extra 1,000 pounds.
Okay, I got to go. Got a break, and let's put Joe on hold and get his information. I'd like to connect with him after the show. Don't go away, folks. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease. And she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time, you can catch me on your local AM and or FM radio stations. And also, you can go to watchbobbylive.com and get the inside scoop, as well as say hello to the camera, the HD broadcast. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by Berryman Engine Oil Extender. Earlier today, we had a caller that called in and talking about additives for oil and gasoline and those things. So here's the story that you need to remember about engine oil, and it's from our partners at Berryman. As your engine runs, it slowly depletes the additives that are in the oil. And as it does, that means that you have to change the oil. So how do you get around the last part of the oil change? Now think about it. You've gone 7,500 miles. When is the most damage performed or done on your engine? It's when the oil is dirty. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So at some point in time, you need to add an additive to the oil, and Berryman Engine Oil Extender is really a super premium engine oil additive that's formulated to extend the life of all in-service gasoline and diesel engine oils by up to 50%. So what happens? In the middle of the life of the oil, the first batch, the first 2,500, 3,000 miles is great because it's new oil. But as it wears and as it wears out, the additives wear out. The oil doesn't wear out, but the additives do. Anyway, it's an interesting topic, and what I would suggest that you do is to go to berrymanproducts.com and do your own research. You'll find a wealth of information there, and you'll know more about why your car breaks down. That's what I'm here for, to help you keep your car in your garage and out of mine. And to that end, though, you need to take your car in for an inspection at least two times a year. Now, in my industry, it's called an oil change, but that's not the fact at all. In fact, last night I was questioned at this same restaurant where I had met Andy by another local that says, Bobby, do you work on Lexus? Well, yeah. Well, how much is an oil change? I said, that's not a good question. Well, why not? Because when you think of changing the oil in your engine, you're focused on changing the oil in your engine, and you're kidding yourself into believing that all you have to do to maintain your vehicle is change the oil and filter in an engine. And folks, nothing can be further from the truth. What your car needs is a visual, hands-on inspection by a certified technician who can look at that vehicle. And do we find things wrong? Yes. We do, and we report those things to you. But the backwards way to do it is to expect that you take in a car in a fast in, fast out lube company and expect them to be able to, in 10 minutes, go through the laborious task of removing the plates on the covers on the bottom of the engine, which all cars have these days, for that those covers are there for gas mileage, so that the air can flow freely under the engine and under the car and not get caught up in the engine compartment. Just like the little 2-inch strip across the front of your car that always hits that curb. All cars have that. What's that for? It's for 0.2 of a mile per gallon. All cars have that. In fact, you'll see some cars now that have a little deeper skirt that hangs down in front of the front and rear tires. Look at some of the cars, the later model cars, and you'll see they are little like mud flaps. And what is that for? It's not for mud. It's for airflow, to help the airflow around the tire. It's a pre-airflow director is what that's called. But anyway, I just want you to know a little bit about how things are made and why things are made the way they are for your automobile. It's not rocket science, but it's very sophisticated, it being the aero design, the computer controls of your engine. Now, let's shift gears a minute. And from our Car Care Council partners, how to tell if floodwater has damaged your vehicle. This is a great article. You can find more information at carcare.org. But with unprecedented rainfall and flooding, that's taken their toll on all vehicles. What you don't want to do is to buy a car that's been in a flood. And according to Car Care Council Executive Director Rich White, our friend, he says, it all comes down to how much water the vehicle took in and where it reached. By being car care aware and following the simple guidelines, you can help minimize the potential for damage to your vehicle, end quote. So here are some following points that you should know if you're looking at a used car and you want to know if it's been flooded and to what extent. First thing you're going to do is check the interior carpets, the upholstery, and the door and trim panels for dampness or for evidence of dampness. I call it ring around the collar, because any moisture that gets in there, liquid water, it will leave a stain. It will leave a water line. You know what I'm talking about. So you look at seat brackets and motors and modules that should also be checked for rust. And you can look under a seat and look at the hardware and the springs and the brackets and the motors and the bolts that hold the seat down. If they're rusty, you got a problem. You've had water. That car, you shouldn't buy that car. Also, you want to make sure you pull the engine oil and transmission dipsticks and the differential plug and see if there's any milky looking oil there. And so now, just for you to know, some differentials and some synthetic differential gear oils look milky. So don't be fooled. You know, that's why you need to know the difference between water intrusion and then what's in the differential. But anyway, the Car Care Council reminds you that some synthetic differential fluids may appear that way, but they're really not contaminated. And when you're in doubt, you just go to a professional automotive technician. And for your information, and to save you money and keep your car in your garage, go to carcare.org, and there's a free car care guide there that I highly recommend that has a wealth of information that you need to know about. So, again, it's my pleasure to provide for you information that'll help you save money. And whether or not you're into cars or not is not the fact of whether or not you tune into Bobby Likis Car Clinic, because sooner or later, the car that you drive is going to need some repairs. And I have a favorite philosophy on that. When you drive the new off an automobile, as you do when you drive it across the curb, when you take delivery of a brand new automobile, you drive the new off, you must replace some of the new parts as you drive the car. And so here's an example. And you know this: tires, brakes, windshield wiper blades. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. You know about that. Well, you know about it because when the brakes get really low, the light comes on, or the squeal tabs make so much noise that you can't stand it. And so that's when you take your car in to the shop. So that's what you need to know, and that's what I highly recommend, to be proactive. And that's why you should tune in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. You know, we're going to take a call from Mary, and who has a question, I think, about car insurance. Mary, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Thank you very much. I'm always here every weekend.
Terrific. What can I do for you?
I have a question. I have a 6-year-old Nissan Pathfinder that has been maintained according to the book stuff every time. I mean, the whole time, and it runs fine.
Okay.
But the warranty has expired, of course, and I get solicitations from all of these weirdo companies that insist that they can do a better job of giving me coverage for breakdowns or whatever it is the warranty's for. And I've always just thrown them away. And now I just wondered if maybe I'm being frivolous with that. Should I pay more attention to that? Are they valid?
Well, that's a deep issue, and I think that's another topic for a complete show, where I might have a representative from one of those companies to join us so we can ask him or her the serious questions about what's covered, how much does it cost, what's it covered, and here's my initial thought, and Mary, and I hesitate to say don't buy it, because sooner or later your air conditioner is going to fail in your Nissan. I mean, air conditioners fail. So sooner or later, and that can cost you anywhere from, well, depends on what broke, $1,000. I mean, you can spend $1,000 easily. But if you keep your car serviced and maintained, and then you take that same cost, let's say that the cost of an aftermarket warranty was $3,000. It's more than that for my car, but let's just say it's $3,000. And if you took that $3,000 and you put that $3,000 in your account, you kept that in your money, and you earmarked it for emergency repairs. And I don't mean that they're emergency, but for unusual, not maintenance, but repairs, fix-it items, like water pumps, like air conditioning systems, and even in some cases with Nissans historically, transmissions, the CVT transmissions, they really gave a lot of problems. So you would still be, in my opinion, money ahead if you kept that money in your bank versus putting it in an aftermarket warranties bank. However, there are some great companies. USAA has an option to buy. Also, there's one other company that I would mention, and that's Geico. Geico has a breakdown maintenance, and I forget what they call it, but it's a maintenance program. So I would do research on Geico and their maintenance aftermarket warranty. I get a quote and see what it costs, and then I would also check 2 other companies, and I hope you've got a pen to write this down. One is Geico, 2 is USAA, and the third is Route 66. And Route 66 is a company that we have dealt with. We've dealt with all these companies. And here's the challenge with aftermarket warranties. There's an executive or an appraiser, or what, I don't know what you call those folks, that sit at a desk and authorize repairs depending on what the repair shop says caused the problem. In other words, they'll cover a head gasket if the head gasket fails, if there's something that shows cause. So there's always some bantering back and forth between the aftermarket warranties and service shops, and after 48 years in the business, I can say that categorically. Is that a bad thing? No, because if you drive a Dodge Ram pickup and you got a transmission issue, a diesel with a transmission issue, and that's a high possibility, you need an aftermarket warranty. But again, how much it costs you, and that's a big subject. And Mary, I just say do research on those 3 companies. That's the 3 top companies that I actually am familiar with. Again, the Geico has a program, USAA, and Route 66, and just let them tell you each, let them vie for your business and see what it costs, and then you get the quote and you call me back on the air and we'll discuss it for the next step before you spend your money on what may not be necessary, as long as you understand that if when your air conditioner breaks down, you're going to write the check for $1,200, $1,500, or $1,000 or whatever it costs. Okay?
Well, it sounds good, and I think you pretty much convinced me to put that in an account and pay the interest off it.
I did. It's my thought, and so if your transmission goes out next week, don't shoot me. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
I've got the interest in my hand, and I appreciate KTVB for putting you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your confidence in me. Take care.
Thanks.
You can't hide it. You can run, but you can't hide. And so I'm not hiding. I put it all out there. This is what I feel. And I'm in the business 48 years, and so I understand these. So I want to share this with you because I think it's important. Super Chips. Super Chips is a company that offers a product that you can tune your engine. And one of those tuners is the Dash Pack Plus. And it features, get this, a 5-inch high-definition screen, an upgraded processor within the unit for quick read-write speed and monitor refresh rates. What does all that mean? Well, you can learn more at superchips.com. What it means, though, is you can buy a tuner kit, plug it into your data port, or you can attach the flash pack to the dash of your automobile and tune the vehicle as you drive. It's amazing what Super Chips has produced, and it's a great value, and we install those units, so I recommend that you go to superchips.com for more information, and then feel free to call me if you have any questions that I can help you with. In the meantime, I also want to mention that everything on the automobile starts at the battery. And that's why it's important, and that's why we use the AGM batteries. And one in particular that I've mentioned for the last several years is PowerFrame. And PowerFrame is not the name of a battery. PowerFrame is the brand of the structure of the battery. It's a grid technology that is actually a company that's owned by, presented by, and manufactured by Clarius. You've heard me talk about Clarius a lot. And there's corrosion resistance with a PowerFrame grid that's designed to minimize corrosion. The durability, get this, 66% more durable and is resistant to fracturing over time. That's the interior of a battery that heat and vibrations destroys. So for more information, check out Clarius. But the next time you need a battery, you look for the logo of the PowerFrame logo. Unfortunately for Carolyn, from New York, and Ted from North Carolina, that's all the time that we have for today's program. What a fast program it's been. Remember, if you're like Matthew in North Carolina or Gary in Texas, make sure that you buy original Motorcraft parts for your Ford and Lincoln automobile. Motorcraft parts are original equipment and they approved specifications, of course, and performance for all Lincoln and Ford repairs, along with an extensive parts lineup, which means that you'll find the right part with the right fit the first time, helping to reduce vehicle downtime. Very important. Keep your car in your garage, keep it tuned, and if you drive a Lincoln or a Ford product, you take a quick tour at motorcraft.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Bobby Likis. What a great program. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Repairing a coolant leak can be costly and typically happens to older vehicles that may not be worth the expensive fix. K-Seal is an alternative, a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Older sealers use sodium silicate, which has the tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. K-Seal is available nationwide at parts stores like AutoZone. Learn more at kseal.com. That's kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
O'Reilly.
This is Derek's O'Reilly Auto Parts story.
After the third time jump-starting my car, I finally realized my battery was dying. So I stopped by O'Reilly to have it checked. They tested it right there in the parking lot. It was bad, real bad. But they helped me find the right battery for my car and even installed it for free. Now my car starts like new.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P-Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
Out in the field, it takes hard work and a little luck to bring a good crop to harvest. Back at the house, it doesn't take luck to keep my truck and gas-powered equipment running smoothly. I use Sta-Bil 360 ethanol treatment to protect my engines against gum, varnish, and corrosion. Gasoline with ethanol can go bad in as little as 30 days. Sta-Bil 360 keeps fuel lasting longer, saving me time and money year-round. America's most trusted ethanol treatment. Sta-Bil 360 won't give up when your fuel gives out.